I'm gonna go ahead. Let me go do start with introductions and stuff. We'll get rolling here because it's just basically right at the top of the hour. My name is Tom Woods. I'm with R2 Sports Technology. I'm located in just outside of Denver, Colorado tonight. So I'm on Mountain Time. It's about 6 o'clock where I am. Appreciate you guys taking time to join us. This is a session that we do. We do a large set of these in the spring for coaches, but this year the season is imminently approaching. I know you guys are getting ready to go with things. And so we thought we'd kind of reprise these sessions from the spring and offer a couple more in case there were people who weren't able to be there in the spring or might be interested in this. And I always kind of like to start with just kind of setting a frame of reference of who I am and who I'm not. I always want guys to understand. I always appreciate the chance to talk to football coaches, but I am not a football coach, and I have never been a football coach. I have no aspirations to be a football coach, although I do think what you guys do is awesome. I'm a data guy, career data guy. I've worked for years. About 25 years ago, I started a company that does a lot of work in the aerospace and defense industry. So I do a lot of work with NASA related projects and things like that. Also do a lot of work in financial markets and energy markets, that kind of stuff. So I'm not a football guy by trade, but about 10 years ago, we ran into some football guys. There were a staff of guys from a Division II school, and we got to talking with them and started understanding what you guys actually do with film data, and started to understand for the first time that you guys actually are. When we started seeing what you're doing with in terms of storing data and putting data in a film system and all that, it became obvious you guys have a database, and we do things with databases. So we started about 10, 11, 12 years ago working with football team. And really what we do is we help them see things in data and kind of make sense and find stories that are hidden in data that are otherwise hard to see. So that's kind of what we do. I will say this too, just addressing the elephant in the room for this session. This is not intended to be an infomercial. Okay. I'm not going to get to the end of this and say for 1995, you can do X, Y, and Z. First of all, because if you want to do something, it wouldn't be 1995. But if, just kidding. But the intent is really what we've learned over the years with working with football coaches is so much of what you can do with your data that's powerful, so much of what you can get out of it that can actually make a difference in winning or losing a football game has a whole lot more to do with how your data is set up to begin with than it necessarily does with what we do. So that's why we do these sessions. We like to walk through with guys and just say, hey, what we hope we can show you tonight is purely from a data guy's perspective. I don't talk as a football coach. And when there's a question, I defer to coaches because there'll be certain things I'll say in the session that you might cringe at a little bit and say, I've spoken like a data guy, and I'd had to acknowledge that. Okay. But what we think we can show you here is with a lot of simplicity, you can do some very, very powerful things. And when I mean powerful, what we want to do for football coaches is help you win a football game. Okay. Not just say, oh, that's kind of a cool, interesting nugget of information. We're trying to help guys take their data and very tangibly increase the chances of winning. Okay. That's really what it's all about, not just eye candy. So with that, let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen here. Again, what we'll do at the end of the session so I'm not a big slide guy. We're gonna progress through one set of notes. When we're done, we will send these out to everybody. So you got a copy of these notes if you'd like to see them. See if I can get there it is. Pop this open. So this is just a single set of notes we're going to walk through again. We'll send you that when it's done. But let's go ahead and dive in. This whole clinic, and you already left it named the Spring Clinic, as you can see there at the top. We call it breaking down film with a purpose. And really what we're trying to do is help guys stop and understand for a second what I would say this, it's human nature. It's not just football coaches and so many things as you guys can appreciate. We tend to get on autopilot and you're doing things because you do things because that's what I do. And we say a lot with football coaches, right? You guys break down film because you're football coaches. And it's almost like if I didn't break down film, I wouldn't be a football coach. So I'm going to break down film. But you might have been breaking down film and doing things a certain way for years and years and years. And we kind of want to take this session, this next 20, 30 minutes or so, to have you stop for a second and just reassess, okay, why am I doing that? What's the intended purpose for it? Because if we can get right with what the purpose is, getting the purpose right is what affects how you actually do the breakdown. Okay. So let's start with that. And I would propose to you, there are three key purposes that we're talking about here. And I see, you guys still hear me okay? Chip, you hear me? See my camera. Forgive me if my camera's toggling in and out, guys. If
No, we
it
got you.
toggles off, I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah, your
Um,
audio is good.
okay, as long as you can hear me, that's great. First key purpose is this. We propose to you, your film data should fulfill a diagnostic purpose for you. Okay. You should be able, with your film data, to very quickly understand where something is and isn't working, and not just that, why it's not working and what you would need to do to fix it. Okay. So that should be one key purpose is, okay, I'm breaking down my film in a way that helps me see that. If I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm breaking things down in a way where the elements are in there enough where I can start to tell where something's not working and how to fix it. That's one big purpose, okay? And that guides how we break film down. The second one is this, and I would say this is the one that if I polled most coach, if I had, if I was talking to 100 coaches and I said, why do you guys break down film? 90+% would probably have this as the reason. Is coaches tend to gravitate toward a predictive purpose. Okay, we're breaking down film because I want to begin to understand what he's going to do in certain situations. And if I can see him, or if I can pick up on something that he's doing, then if I know what he's going to do, I can head him off at the pass and be there to stop him. So we think predictively, and I would say that is the overwhelming purpose that most guys claim when they're breaking down film. I will challenge you with this is, well, and I'll say this professionally, I'm a predictive guy, and I that's my wheelhouse. We do things in financial markets, energy markets, all this stuff where we are predicting, predicting, predicting. And so I have a very strong affinity for the ability to predict things well. Okay. But I will say this, in football, I think it's maybe the most misplaced priority. Just because, and you guys know this better than me, how hard it is to practically do. A game is moving fast. You got a play clock that's ticking down. You may see something very powerful that could lead you to what the right prediction is, but oftentimes it reveals itself so late you can't do much with it. So while it's a very powerful thing, it's one of those things that you maybe nail it maybe once or twice or three times a game, and it can make a huge difference when you do, don't get me wrong. But we spend so much energy on the predictive side, and its return on investment, so to speak, is pretty low. Okay. So while I understand that there's ways you break the film down that'll help you with that, and we'll get into that. It's a very important purpose, but it's probably, in my opinion, the least important. Okay. This third one, I think, is the one that's the most overlooked. The way you break down your film, it should very directly help you implement a plan that puts you in the best possible play calling situations against your opponent. That's if you break your film down right, and this is what we're going to show you tonight, it's not even really hard to do. Okay, it's just a couple key principles, but that probably, and from a play calling standpoint, is the most important thing. I need to break it down in a way so that it can tell me what a good or a bad call looks like in a certain situation, because that's ultimately where the rubber meets the road. When you guys are breaking down film, think about all the work you do in that, the hours you spend breaking film down, looking at the data. It manifests itself usually in your call sheet. You see everybody with their big sheets, their laminated sheets, and they got the key situations and the calls they like and don't like. That it's all about getting to that and feeling good about that call sheet. That's what this film data, if you break it down the right way, can really directly improve your call sheet, is what it should do. Okay. So those that we think are the three biggest purposes, and you should be thinking about those. And again, I think probably the first reset in that first section is that guys most of the time are only thinking about predicting, and they spend a ton of time on the thing that has the worst return on investment. Okay, and these other things can do you far better, and they can be pretty easy to do. So what we're going to talk about now. Now I'm kicking into data weenie guy. I know. Okay, but this is spoken as a data guy again. To accomplish those purposes, there's three key principles in data that you got to be thinking about when you do your film day. Some of these are going to be captain obvious, so you can you don't have to hold your breath too much. It's not going to be too exciting. But three key data principles. The first of them is this. Whatever you're doing when you're breaking down your film, you have to adopt a universal program-wide data language and structure. Okay. One language that everybody in your program speaks the same. And I will say this, that I'm okay with saying that that language is probably unique to your offensive and defensive staffs. Okay. Because I don't expect necessarily your offense and defense to speak exactly the same way, but within your defensive staff or your offensive staff, you should have one language. It's used everywhere. It's structured the same. You always use common fields. Okay. So what that means is consistency in all places. When we talk about data, one of the most powerful things you can do with data is connect data together. One of the really the most powerful things you can do, if you think about the way you break down film, think about your self-scout data and your opponent scout data. This is something we see with guys a lot. First of all, there's some guys don't do self-scout frequently enough. That's another issue we can get into. But just looking at those two pieces of data, what commonly happens is I'll see somebody's self-scout data and the structure and the way they broke that down is totally different from the way they break down an opponent. Okay. And to a first order, you might say, well, it's understandable. We're looking at different things, but what we're encouraging you guys is establish a common set of fields and way you break things down across both of those. Because what you can do that's powerful then, if they are set the same, you can click them together. And when you click them together, you can start to see, oh, he is not good against this. And oh, I can look at my self scout and I can see the exact same thing and see I'm good against it. And suddenly they line up. But the ability to line those things up and find things like strengths on weaknesses and things like that is a function of the language and structure between those things being the same. We'll show you an example here, what we're talking about in a second, but that's what I'm saying is, man, you need to establish, here's our language for defensive fronts. It is this, it is always this, whether we're breaking down an opponent or us, this is what we call it. And everybody adheres to that. Okay. So that's the first big thing. If you don't have that, you're going to be a little bit hamstrung to begin with. Second thing, big one, break down your data in layers. Go from high to low. Go from general to specific. Okay. I think we see this a lot. It's not, again, this is not unique to football coaches, but I think there's a misconception in the world that complexity equals intelligence. And I would push back on that a little bit. I think, look at here's how artsy I am. I'm not very artsy, as you can tell. I think it was Leonardo da Vinci has a quote that says, "The ultimate sophistication is simplicity." Okay. It's being as simple as you can be. Sometimes the greatest power is in simplicity. What happens is a lot of times I'll see some guys, I'll see it from high schools. I get data from some high schools that are far more detailed than what I would see from a college guy, even because some guys just get into it so much. And they break down with such detail and they spend a lot of time getting to detail. Okay. The problem is if you get too detailed, you start losing the ability to find trends and patterns in data because you've blown down so deep, your sample sizes get so small that you can't pick up anything meaningful. You might have a specific play call like the, triple XY banana or something, and you went all to the detail to get that specific. But the problem was it only shows up once or twice because it's too specific and I can't get a pattern on it. So what we encourage guys to do is this. You need to game plan conceptually and implement your plan specifically. So your data, I think you should push your data more to be conceptual. If you have very specific play calls or things like that, you need to think about building a bucket to contain detailed things and that's one level higher. So if in your breakdowns you've got all these very specific call names, play calls, let's say, you want to create a category above that that's like play family or play concept. And you can map all these specific play calls. These are all outside zone running plays. If we can start to label them that way and group them that way, then you start to see patterns at the group level that you don't see at the specific level. Okay. There's a couple of things to that. A, that increases your sample size. Suddenly I can find patterns I couldn't find before, but it also makes life easier because it's a whole lot easier to break things down conceptually than it is to break them down specifically. You move faster and it gives you greater value. So suddenly I'm finding patterns at the conceptual level. I'm able to map things to other things at a conceptual level, and I'm able to move faster. So it's like the fact that you're watering down a little bit is actually helping you. It's not a sacrifice. It's a it's an additive thing. Okay. So this is really key, breaking down data in layers. Group things, think conceptual. The third one is this is probably the one that's the biggest one that I think you guys need to be thinking about. This is probably the biggest miss that we would see in the data that we usually see from guys. And it's this principle is this. If you control it, you have to include it. Okay. And this is this is so fundamentally important. This gets to that third bullet up above where we talk about one of the purposes should be implement your data should help you implement a plan that helps you actually win. The key is this. If you control it, include it. That means this. If I'm a defensive coordinator, okay, and this is a classic case. I'm a defensive guy and I'm breaking down an opposing offense. My inclination is to gravitate towards this second purpose. So I'm probably thinking predictively all the time. So when I start investing my time in breaking down this opposing offense, I immediately start looking at what formation were they in? What play did they run? What direction did they go? And I'm looking at all this stuff about that offense. Okay. The problem is you don't control any of it. Nothing. You don't control what formation he's going to show you. You don't control what play he's going to run. You don't control what personnel grouping there. You have no control over any of it. So when you do that, you're breaking all that stuff down, but you're now only hoping to guess right, which is a really hard thing to do. What you should definitely be including is this. If I'm the defensive coordinator, again, use that same example, looking at that opposing offense, the most important thing I would contend you can put in your data is what was the defense doing? And now, keeping in mind that that defense you're looking at is not your defense, it's somebody else's defense, right? So this gets to the second point we just talked about. This is why you have to do things conceptually, because your specific defensive play calls aren't going to be the same as what that guy's running, but the concepts you can probably recognize. So you start doing a conceptual breakdown of what that defense was doing. Why do I do that? Because now in the data, I can now start to see what are the things that I do control that give him trouble. So now if I know, okay, I don't know what personnel group he's going to be in. I don't know any of that. But I know on second down from the left hash or whatever it might be, I can see that boy, he is terrible against cover two in that situation. You're not predicting what he's going to do. Now you're simply recognizing the fact that whatever been doing and probably going to do doesn't work against cover two. So that you have the ability now to feed him that all day long. You can see what he hates and you can make him eat what he hates if you see that. And that begins to change everything because now instead of living with this coaching stress of feeling like I'm always trying to guess right, now I'm sleeping better at night, not worrying about trying to guess right. I'm already knowing I don't know why, but he can't handle this. So all week long, I'm gonna in that situation, that's making my call sheet, and I'm free to just work with my guys all week to run cover two as good as we can, as best as we possibly can. I'm not guessing. I already know, and I'm just getting my guys ready to do best the thing that they hate to see. Same thing if I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm looking at an opposing defense. And I'm not saying we don't care about those things because they have a place, and we'll talk about it here in a second. But I think in a prioritized level, this is more important. If I'm an offensive coordinator looking at an opposing defense, I do care what coverages and blitzes. I care. I do. I'm not saying I don't. But what I do control are offensive concepts. So I should start by looking at what those offenses were doing conceptually against that defense. What concepts worked well in what situations against this guy? Because you have the direct power to do that and to serve that up all day. Okay. So again, just kind of rehash where we are. Three purposes. It should be diagnostic. There's a predictive purpose to it, and it should very discreetly, very specifically help you see what good and bad play calls are. Okay. To do that, you need a common universal language, easy structure. Everybody gets it. Everybody calls this the same thing and everybody uses it. We think conceptually. We break down in layers and we put concepts in buckets before we don't go straight to specific. If we have time and resources to work our way into the specific, great. But don't go straight to the specific and skip the layers going down to it. Get the layers in there because that's where you're going to find patterns that are meaningful. And then if you control it, you got to have it in there. Now, this is again, I told you I would say some things as a data guy that would probably make you cringe as a coach. But this is the truth. If someone came to me, if I was working with a team and they said, "Hey, we want you to break down film for us," but the deal is you can have 1 hour a week to do it, okay, or less, then I'd be like, okay, I tell you the only thing I would do. Here's what I would probably do. If I could afford it, I'd probably have huddle assist go ahead and lay in the down distance, yard line gain stuff, so I didn't have to worry about that. If I could afford it, I'd have them do that so I didn't have to mess with it. But then I would come in, and if I was a defensive guy, I would go through it and I would say, okay, fronts, let's look at it. It was even, odd, odd, even, odd, something like that. I'd look at coverage. I'd say that's cover two, two, three, three, four, one. I would just at that level, pass rush, rushed 4, 4, 4, 4, 5, 4, 3, 5, 5, whatever. I would just do that. And if that's all I did, if that was all I did, if I didn't even get a chance to look at their offensive personnels and formations, I would contend you would probably be, you would still get a lot of value out of that. Okay, because you would now start to know, okay, here's the right profile of things to call defensively. And you can do that fast, and it can change how well you play. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna dive out. I'm gonna show you some examples in film data, what we're talking about. And then I'll show you, I'm going to run through an example with you guys. Here's what I always do this. We'll get to the bottom of the hour, which is like 10 minutes away, and we'll open up for questions and things like that. And if you guys have to bail and go, whatever, that's all, by all means, do what you got to do. Again, we'll send you these notes and things. But I will show you an example. We'll walk through a live example of some of the things we do with some coaches, and we'll show you here a little bit how we actually put it in place if you want to stick around for a few minutes after 6:30 or 6:30 my time. Sorry, bottom of the hour. Let's do this. Let me bring up an example of some film data, which I thought I had sitting here, but my computer is now. There we go. Give me 1 second here. Okay, let me give you a quick example of what we're talking about here. Let's start from I'm going to start with the defense. Sometimes the defensive guys get short shrift. Maybe not, but we'll start there. This is an example. This is just a working example of film data to kind of illustrate the points of what we're talking about here. This would be a defensive coordinator looking at an opposing offense. Okay. And you see these gray fields, the fields I kind of have in light gray. These are standard kind of things. Okay. This is the kind of stuff you probably see in huddle all the time. You don't really have to have quarter. You got quarter, that's great. Doesn't really matter. But really down, distance, yard line, what hash they were on. Here's the play type. Was it a run or a pass? What was the gain or the loss? That's about as standard as it comes. I'm sure you guys see that all the time. You're all over all that stuff. So that's the stuff I said again, that if I could afford it and Huddle Assist was going to make my life easier by having that there, great. Okay. So that's the easy, got to have it, pretty standard stuff. Now, again, here's what I'm saying. If I'm a defensive coordinator now and I'm looking at an opposing offense, this is where my prioritization starts. What I would do is the next thing I would do is my next priority would be a conceptual breakdown of what the defenses were doing. So I start with the things I control. So here I am. I control these defensive things. I want to do a conceptual breakdown on the things I control. That's my next priority. And that's what's in these blue here. And when I say conceptual again, we're doing it at a level that's easy enough to move fast. I know that there can be nuances and specifics, and that's, you can get into all these specifics, but you want to try and avoid that. You just want to think, what's a common concept, things that we would recognize in our defense that we can match up to. So I might do things about personnel where they in base or nickel. Some teams are in the same thing all the time, so it wouldn't even matter to you. But you might put something in there, base, nickel, dime, if that was meaningful to you. Front structure or front family, something like that. You might just do odd and even. You don't have to. Any kind of family of front would be a good thing to do. Coverages, again, just what's the coverage family? I know there's a lot of specifics, but just what's the general family? Cover 0, 1, 2, or 3. Easy. Move fast. Keep it easy. I mentioned rushing. Here's how many guys rush: 3, 4, 5. Or you could just do, a lot of times they'll just do blitz, yes or no. Simple as that. Just those things alone they'll start to inform me a little bit about what are good and bad fronts to be in against certain plays or certain situations. What are good or bad coverages? What coverage should I definitely avoid in a certain situation? I can start to see those things now that I very directly control. I'm not just guessing anymore. Okay. Now, the extent to which I still have time and still have resources to pour into it, then I would move to a conceptual breakdown of my opponent. Okay. I'm delaying going into too much specifics yet. So now I'm going to look at this and say, okay, give me these general concepts offensively, things like personnel. Formations can get very specific too. So we encourage things like a formation family. You might just say it's a 2x2 or a 1x3, something easily identifiable. Play concept, generally speaking. Is it inside zone or outside zone? Don't get too specific with the play call yet, unless you have more time. Because if you get too specific, you're going to start to lose the ability to find patterns. So thinking conceptually, things like play direction is real easy, right or left. So I'm thinking conceptual first. I'm thinking things I control, conceptual first. Things that he does, I think conceptual second. Then, if I still have more time, energy, resources, and I really want to play, then I'll start getting into specifics. And I can get into specifics of things I do and specifics of things they do and calls and motions and backfields. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying there's a path to it. And what some guys do is they don't do any of this stuff here, and they jump straight to specific. And by doing that, they actually hurt themselves. They actually now can't see things at an actionable level or pick up on patterns that are meaningful. Okay. Now, we'll flip it. It's very much the same on the other side. If I'm an offensive coordinator looking at an opposing defense, same thing. Give me the basics, and then I'm going to start conceptual breakdown. What do I control? Conceptual breakdown of what I control. Boom. And again, conceptual meaning I can see it in my own data. I can see it in his data. Okay. So same, and keep it at the concept level. So I'm putting in formation families, concepts, directions, and then I'm doing a conceptual breakdown of him. And then I'm getting into detail if I have time. Okay. Now, same thing. If you then, here's the offensive coordinator, here's an opposing defense. This is what we talk about with common language. This would be an example of him doing self-scout data. So what you would want to do is have your self-scout match your opponent scout. So if you had a common structure, which means, okay, here's how I do a breakdown here of an opponent. In my self scout, I'm going to have the same structure. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do my conceptual of him. And then the thing that's different is usually in your self scout, you'll have a whole lot more specific stuff, which is totally appropriate there. You'd have more specifics than you would have in your opposing one. But by doing that, especially if you have a good match between self scout and opponent scout through these two sets, then you have something really powerful because now you can dial up one situation in a game and you can look at your opponent and you can see, oh, look, we're really good at this. And look, he's really bad defending that. Boom. That's strength on weakness. And those are the things that are like, okay, hammer him with that. Because not only can he not handle it, but it's the perfect combination of something we're good at and he's not. So you hit him all day with those. You'll see plenty of them where it's like an equal footing. We're both bad at it or we're both good at it. But you'll find those ones where you're good, he's bad, and just boom, boom, boom all day on them. Okay. But it's about keeping things at a conceptual enough level to find them. And if you don't do that, you go right past it. And it's harder to pick up, let alone the predictive side of tendencies and all that stuff. You'll find way far more because your sample sizes will be healthier. You'll find conceptual tendencies that you never would have seen if you just go straight to detail. Okay. Hopefully that makes some sense. And I don't think it's all necessarily all that revolutionary, but I think it's something that can, if you actually implement that, for what I see with a lot of teams, if they implemented this, it would actually be easier than what they're doing now. And it would actually help them far more than what they're doing now is doing for them. Okay. So that's why I encourage you guys. So again, it's about those three big purposes. And it's about, again, almost like keeping it more simple, keeping it conceptual, but just making things match and including what you control. Those things alone, I think, will revolutionize what you do. Now, we are at basically the bottom of the hour. So I appreciate you guys taking time with us. What I'd like to do is this. First of all, if you have questions, by all means, come off there. Or if we have questions in the chat, by all means, we'll address those now. But what I want to show you is, if I can, I'm going to give an example of if you did your data this way. And again, take this for if I'm not trying to make this shameless plug, but we're really excited about some of the things we do. This year, we've have we've launched a new AI platform. Okay. And I want to show you real quickly what you could do with your film data, what this would allow you to see. Okay. So I'm going to give you a quick example. If I, let's say let's start with this defensive coordinator as an example. Okay. So what I've got here, I think I pulled some of this data out. Let's say we're looking at this opposing offense here. So I'm a defensive coordinator in this case. All I did was really extract what we just saw there. And really all I've extracted out of that breakdown is I just kept it purely to the conceptual fields we were just talking about here. Okay. So this is nothing more than a conceptual breakdown. Conceptual what I control, conceptual what he likes to do. Just those two things. And I have an example here. This is probably a 3 game, maybe it might be more. We got a couple hundred plays in here. Doesn't have to be. Certainly sample size is a big deal. That's why doing things conceptually, you kind of inherently create sample size in your data without breaking down more film. So it's really important to do that. But Usually, you'd like to at least get 2 or 3 games in there so you can get a pretty good sample size going where you can get meaningful patterns. But just with a simple breakdown like this, I'm going to show you real quick what this AI engine would do with it and kind of give you an idea. But before I do that, I'm not seeing everything. Chip, do we have questions or anything we should address first? How we doing? We good?
I think we're good right now.
Okay, let's keep going. So we feel the platform is called Scout AI. Okay, I'm going to show you this. It's as simple as this. All you do with this platform, if you had that breakdown data, you just take your data, dump it to a CSV file, dump it out of your huddle system into a file. And with this platform, you can just go point to it. So here's this, I just call it Clinic High School offense. I would just point my data to that. And I'm going to tell it to give me what we call a structural breakdown. I won't go into, you can either do a situational or a structural breakdown, it's called. But let me just go ahead and start this. So I'm going to let this go here for a second. I'll kind of explain what this is doing to begin with. One of the things we've done for years, and again, this is just, I want you guys to see this so you understand what's possible with data. Um, for years, I mentioned to you for the last 10, 11 years, we've been doing things for football coaches, and a lot of things we've done, we have some tools and things we've delivered to coaches that help them see things in data in a pretty powerful way. But the problem is they still have been some assembly required, if you know what I mean, right? We can send you a tool, but you'd still have to interact with it. You'd still have to go exercise it to get something out of it. What this AI engine does is it automatically breaks down film. No, I should correct myself. It doesn't automatically break down film. It takes film breakdown and it automatically performs the analysis on it. Okay. So what this has done here, and it'll keep rolling here over the next minute or two. Right here, it started by looking at run pass for this team, and it looks at their run game, and it assesses whether they're good or bad, how many average yards per play, what's their success rate. And it starts blowing it down, looking at by downs and areas of the field and hashes and specific play calls and against certain coverages and you name it. It just starts dumping data. So it's an A. We're leveraging the power of artificial intelligence. Listen, I didn't create an AI, so I'm not some genius here, but we're leveraging the power of it to do the interpretation of your data for you. Okay, so that the analytical burden, you guys spend enough time breaking down film, right? The actual analysis of it can be performed by an AI engine. So that's what this does. It'll keep going here over time, but I'll kind of fast forward ahead. All this stuff just gets dumped out of this. This will generate a PDF file that is, depending on what your data looks like. And again, keeping in mind, this is coming from just the simple conceptual breakdown. Don't even worry about specifics. Just do a quick conceptual breakdown. This will generate probably 40, 50 pages of detailed scouting information, telling you things like, hey, this play call, they cannot run it against this front. On third downs, this coverage really gives them trouble. All the stuff that you would probably need to know is just already found for you by virtue of this AI engine. You can see it now. It's going through, it's analyzing play calls right now, just doing it on its own. Now, what you can do with these tools that are pretty crazy, um, with other existing AI engines, there's something called Google Notebook, which is a free application. You can take this PDF file that gets created and see if it'll wake up down here. I'll show you, just give you a quick idea what that PDF file looks like. Let me show you this here real quick. This is the file that ultimately be created. This one is 58 pages long, and it's just reams of information in here that's, all these things about this team from again, guys, from a conceptual breakdown, from a breakdown that would probably take you less time than what you're doing now. Okay. Now, I'll be the first to say I'm a data guy, so I'm into this stuff, but that's too much. I mean, 58 pages, well, there it is. So you can go through it for sure. But you can take these reports, dump them into this free application here. I think I can get in case you want to see me again, I actually am here. Um, you can actually take this PDF file and you can interact with it in a unique way. And one of the things you can do, you can basically you can turn it into your own chat GPT. And you can come to that report and say, okay, on third down, what coverages give this offense trouble? And it will do again, this what I'm showing you right here, this application, this is free. So once this AI engine creates this report, you can just query it like it's Chat GPT. It's like on third down, this defense demonstrates strengths against cover 2-3-1. Here's all this detail. Right. Here's cover one. They gained 7.8 yards per play. Oh, look at this cover two. On third down, um, they averaged 2.5 yards a play with an 18% success rate on 11 plays against cover two. So it's just boom, 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 boom. The other thing you can do with this here is it'll create an audio overview of it, which is, I don't mean to be too weird. This AI thing, guys, it's going to kill us all. But until it does, we can do some pretty powerful things with it. I'll just give you a quick example of what this sounds like real quick. I got this thing I can show you here real quick, I think. Just to give you an idea. What you can do with these things is create these audio overviews of it. And when you do that, it basically turns it into like a two-person discussion podcast on all your data. You could listen to it driving in the car. Here's an example.
Welcome to the deep dive.
I'll kind of fast forward
Today,
this a little bit here.
Getting clearly vulnerable to several specific run plays in short yardage, especially ones hitting outside or involving the QB directly. It sounds like offenses have found plays that work consistently.
Based on this data, absolutely. But
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are hearing
there
that,
also
but
no
that's
specific strengths here where they
that's an
That's fun.
example. That's just taken, again, this is just existing what AI can do for you these days. But the key is what we've been talking about back here in this presentation is it's so much about how you structure your data. Okay. That's the beginning and end of it all. If your data is, a hodgepodge Swiss cheese of some specifics and some not and all this other stuff, it gets harder. But if you structure it with kind of that thought behind it of what I'm trying to achieve, and I employ these data disciplines, A, it becomes more simple, B, I can move faster, and suddenly I have a source that tapping into some existing AI stuff can now revolutionize the way you're getting to information, your data. And it's something that any high school can do. You don't have to be Ohio State. You don't have to be the Baltimore Ravens. You can be Clinic High School in Mississippi, and you can be getting that kind of insight into your data with existing AI tools. So we present that to you. Again, we'll send you the notes from the session. And again, if you have questions, by all means, let me know. If you guys are interested, you can by all means share some data with us. We can point you to a demo site for this. You can dump your data in and push the button and watch what it does. And if you're interested in this, we'd certainly be happy to talk to you about that too. But I appreciate you guys taking time. I hope, again, that if nothing else, we never cross paths again. I hope what you've heard here tonight is something that you can take with you. It can help you get more out of your data. So many coaches I know, you're going to spend time breaking down film. There's no way you're not going to do it. And you should, right? My hope is that from this short session we did, you can do it in a way that you always are getting as much out of it as you possibly can. Okay. Great. With that, I'll open it if there are questions. Great. Otherwise, thank you so much for taking time. We'll send you the notes. And when we do, you'll have our contact information. If you have questions or want to try some data out, by all means, let us know. Okay. So with that, I'll let you go, but I will stick around in case you want to chime in with a question. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, the thing I was going to add, Tom, if we will use the email address that you registered with. If that's not a good email address for you, drop it in the chat and I'll pick it up and send it that way.
Sounds good. Best of luck out there, guys. Have a great season.